The Adani-Hindenburg battle has now become the BJP opposition war, but the Prime Minister speaking in Parliament refused to take the bait. I'm Barkha Dutt, you're with the Mojo story. Our focus today is on the Prime Minister's speech. This was meant to be, of course, a reply to the president's address, but of course, these entire last few days in Parliament have been dominated by the allegations against Gautam Adani. Opposition members have chosen in their replies to focus, instead of on the union budget, on the allegations against Adani. The Hindenburg report has accused the billionaire of, among other things, encouraging tax havens and market manipulation. Now, as the stock of the Adani group has tumbled, the politics have only got more and more ferocious. The opposition, it seems, have been united by this Adani crisis, the Adani-Hindenburg battle, but the Prime Minister today appeared to be unruffled. He did not mention the words Gautam Adani even once, but they were, of course, oblique and sometimes sharp swipes at the opposition. At one point, he ended his speech by saying that जो लोग झूठ बोलते हैं उनको कौन believe करेगा? Who will believe people who lie? At another point, he made a dig about Harvard, saying many in the opposition were obsessed with Harvard, but one of the prominent case studies at Harvard was a study of the rise and fall of the Congress party. A lot to unpack in this program today. The Prime Minister completely ignores the bait thrown by the opposition on the Adani issue. But will the BJP remain unsinged and unimpacted by the noise around the Adani-Hindenburg battle? Let's introduce our guests on the program today. Let's bring them up there. I can see Gurucharan Das. Gurucharan Das, welcome to the program. He's, of course, a well-known author and commentator. Also joining us is senior business journalist Madhavan Naryanan. Always good to see you. Salman, who's, of course, a Congress member, but also a trained economist, is with us. Also joining us is PKD Nambiar. Mr. Nambiar is a political analyst, but also a business person. Good to see you, PKD. And finally, joining us from the BJP is its leader and spokesperson, Satyen Kulabkar. Namaskar, Satyenji. Always a pleasure. Okay, with everyone's permission, I would like to open these proceedings by listening to an excerpt from the Prime Minister's speech. It was a long speech, but I think this little clip will help you set the tone for the conversation. Listen it.
पिछले 10 साल में 2014 के पहले 2004 से 14 भारत की अर्थव्यवस्था खस्ता हाल हो गई। निराशा नहीं होगी तो क्या होगा? 10 साल में महंगाई डबल डिजिट रही और इसलिए कुछ अगर अच्छा होता है तो निराशा और उभर करके आती है। और जिन्होंने बेरोजगारी दूर करने के वादे किए थे, इन्होंने भी बेरोजगारी दूर करने के नाम पर एक कानून दिखाया, वो कानून बना दिया है। अरे देखो, कानून बना दिया है। ये इनके तरीके हैं, पल्ला झाड़ दिया। 4 से 14 आजादी के इतिहास में सबसे घोटालों का दशक रहा, सबसे घोटाला। वही 10 साल, यूपीए के वो 10 साल, कश्मीर से कन्याकुमारी, भारत के हर कोने में आतंकवादी हमलों का सिलसिला चलता रहा। 10 साल।
And at another moment in his speech, he made a reference to what he called the usual ecosystem. An ecosystem, he said, could not even partake in India's progress. Listen.
कुछ लोगों के भाषण के बाद पूरा इकोसिस्टम समर्थक उछल रहे थे और खुश होकर के कहने लगे, ये हुई नहीं। पूरा इकोसिस्टम उछल रहा था और कुछ लोग तो खुश होकर के कह रहे थे ये हुई ना बात, बड़ा शायद नींद भी अच्छी आई होगी, शायद आज उठ भी नहीं पाए होंगे। और ऐसे लोगों के लिए कहा गया है, बहुत अच्छे ढंग से कहा गया है, ये कह कर के हम, ये कह कर हम दिल को बहला रहे हैं, ये कह के हम दिल को बहला रहे हैं, वो अब चल चुके हैं, वो अब चल चुके हैं, वो अब आ रहे हैं।
The speech was replete with quips and sarcasm and humor like this, but the two words Gautam Adani were not mentioned. Let me start with reactions before I get the political voices in. Gurucharan, let's take a look at the big picture. The economic debate has become now a political debate. Can the BJP remain unimpacted? The Prime Minister certainly seems to think so. He ended his speech by basically listing a set of achievements, India's progress, India's place in the world, what he argued his government had achieved, and then said, "Who's going to believe people who choose to lie, who can't even take part in the country's, celebrating the country's progress?" Do you think he sensed the mood of people right?
Well, I mean, it was bizarre. At least I think he owed Parliament something, and he gave nothing. And we still have to judge SEBI, RBI, these regulators who should have been doing their job all along. They need to provide the people with some answers. So the reality is that the words crony capitalism have dogged us for the last 30 years, ever since the reforms came about. And capitalism has still not found a comfortable home in our country. Therefore, it's very important that for the sake of the markets, for the sake of India's future, that we get to the bottom of this and get closure on this subject, because this is not good. I mean, there's no point saying how wrong the Congress was. Well, yes, I mean, UPA too was a very corrupt government, and that's why a lot of people elected Mr. Modi. So now it's important for the sake of our country that we should bring to light and bring to closure this subject as fast as
But
possible.
why do you believe the Prime Minister should have answered? There are those who are arguing in the BJP, and I'm sure Satyen ji will make his own argument, that the markets have their own logic. SEBI will decide what's wrong and right. The
Right.
regulators are there. What specifically would you have wanted the Prime Minister to address?
Well, I think because it's become such a big issue, whether you do an JPC or not, it would be good, when a crisis occurs, the Prime Minister tries to calm the country, and therefore even a few lines, I
Hmm.
think, would have helped. But just to say that you guys did wrong, um, is not very helpful. Is not very helpful.
Okay, let me open this up now. Satyen Kulabkar of the BJP is with us. Satyan ji, of course, Gautam Adani is from your home state of Gujarat. Rahul Gandhi had a statement कि ये सरकार हम दो हमारे दो की है. He was, of course, talking about the Prime Minister and the Home Minister, and the two industrialists he was referencing were Mr. Ambani and Mr. Adani. One of your party colleagues said these industrialists are being singled out for being Gujarati, that we are not here to defend or defame them, but the fact that they're from Gujarat is a reason for political attack. But do you not think the allegations are serious enough for, as Gurucharan Das says, the Prime Minister to have made some sort of acknowledgement or some sort of response? Satyanji.
See, Barkha, this is an industry which has got its share down because of some report, and it yes, it is affecting the Indian economy, and that is one matter of concern for any citizen of the country. But apart from that, if you talk for any industry for us, for that matter, we will always try to we'll try to understand what are the things that are going on. But few questions which are very sacrosanct here is
Hmm.
the timing part of it. If we take the timing part of it, every time when there is a session, something like this comes across for India, especially the parliament session where the government is supposed to address a lot of key related issues. So this has been a off and on thing which has happened. The second thing is it why LIC is so confident after the entire things have gone up? LIC is so confident. Why even Adani, for that instance, after having a FPO which is fully subscribed on the grounds of morality, has taken back? So these are the few questions. Why there is a competition shown? The competitions like Ambani's, who are the core competitors of a company, have come together for Adani, during this time. So this all questions leads us to a path which is to be discussed off and on, because generally it is always said that the discussion is always
But how do
against.
you, Satyaji? All this is a fair point, and the LIC. Others have also made this point that even the former SEBI chairman told me that even with the damage to it, they thought the LIC would make profit on its investment in Adani. But the politics of it, the transparency that Gurucharan Das talks about, that if there is a हड़बड़ी over something, जिसको कहते हैं ना अगर हड़बड़ी है, तो Prime Minister could have calmed that down. उस पे आप क्या बोलेंगे?
See, why should Prime Minister in Parliament, where he is given a specific amount of time, talk about something which is right now in the phase of allegation? Imagine what is Hindenburg. Hindenburg is just a short-selling company which has given a report which is obviously going to today. If I write a report saying about the Mojo story, just because for my profit making or for my gaining purpose, will that actually create a creditability issue for Barkha Dutt and the Mojo story? I don't think so. The reason being is the credit of Barkha Dutt or Mojo story is far more upper, far more higher than any person
Well,
like what is taken.
like with me or Gautam Adani, the market decides, and that is the truth. The market decides. My viewers decide. My audience decides. With Mr. Adani, the market, the fact that his stock tumbled means the market is jittery. But you raise an important question: why should the Prime Minister answer for the market being jittery? And I want to take that to Salman Soz. That's my first question to you. Why does the opposition believe the Prime Minister must answer for some of these allegations? I agree, the allegations are grave. The market has punished Mr. Gautam Adani already. He's lost more than 50% of his wealth. Where is the Prime Minister's answerability? And if Rahul Gandhi is holding up pictures of Gautam Adani with the Prime Minister, then Salman, that there are also pictures, and we have them, of Mr. Adani talking very convivially with Ashok Gehlot, Mr. Adani talking with Mamta Banerjee. In fact, can we come out of this and play those pictures? And Salman, let me take that question to you. Salman.
Well, Barkha, the reason the Prime Minister has to answer is because he's answerable to the people of India and he's answerable to Parliament.
Yeah.
The allegations that Rahul Gandhiji spoke about, he made those allegations on the floor of the House. These are allegations in the public domain. These are serious allegations about a nexus between the Prime Minister and Mr. Adani and other big businesses. And why are these allegations there? I think it's a fair point. Why are these allegations there? So let me just give you a very specific example of the Adani Group's basically takeover of 6 public sector airports, and what the Financial Times wrote about of that takeover. The Financial Times writes that when the Indian government approved the privatization of 6 airports in 2018, it relaxed the rules to widen the pool of competition, allowing companies without any experience in the sector to bid. There was one clear winner from the rule change, writes the Financial Times, Gautam Adani. Now, that's not it. Now, that you can say that that's the Financial Times, it's a newspaper, they just, this is another allegation. But more importantly, the Ministry of Finance objected and raised concerns. And what did the Ministry of Finance say? Through the Department of Economic Affairs. The DEA says, and writing to the public-private, there's a committee which basically does appraisals of, partnership appraisal committee. What the DEA says is the following. These 6 airports, which were going to be privatized, are highly capital-intensive projects. Hence, it is suggested to incorporate the clause that not more than 2 airports will be awarded to the same bidder, duly factoring the high financial risk and performance issues. And the DEA goes on to say, it cites the examples of the Delhi and Mumbai airports. It said the GMR group was not given both the airports, even though the company was the only qualified bidder. In fact, the Supreme Court at that time said that they would have to team up with a qualified kind of company to get this thing done. That was not it. Niti Aayog also objected. Niti Aayog said a bidder lacking sufficient technical capacity can well jeopardize the project and compromise the quality of services that the government is committed to provide. And what does the Public-Private Partnership Appraisal Committee say in response to these objections? Basically, it says that prior experience with airports may neither be a prerequisite for bidding nor a post-bid.
But Salman, I hope you saw the GVK statement today.
No, I will come to that. No, I'm coming to that. Barkha, this is not about the Mumbai airport. This is about the 6 airports getting privatized and how a government committee basically overrules objections from within the Ministry of Finance and the Niti Aayog and says that it's not prior experience in this field is not needed. That rule was relaxed. And Mr. Adani won those bids. Now, the question is, everybody on this panel knows that no government committee is going to reject or overrule another government entity without somebody higher up saying, it's okay, just go ahead. Who was that person who ordered this committee to relax?
So that is the argument.
Was it the Prime Minister? Was it Amit Shah? Who was it? We want to know. The people of India.
So that is where you say that the government owes answerability not on the share prices of Adani or what Hindenburg says, but on this kind of favoritism or pressure tactics, both of which you're referencing. I want Mr.
This is
Nambiar
just one example, Barkha.
Okay,
this is just one example in a litany of cases. This is just one.
Okay, PKD Nambiar, do go ahead. Mr. Nambiar, can you hear me? I don't think he can hear me. Madhavan, let me take the question to you. Madhavan, go ahead.
I think, Barkha, 3 or 4 quick observations. First of all, I heard Mr. Gurucharan Das talk about crony capitalism, and that is the key issue at stake here. And the big question is, after listening to the Prime Minister, I was wondering if one man's national development is another man's crony capitalism, because this whole business of what you would traditionally call politics business nexus, if it is packaged as national collaboration, then how does one approach it from the point of view of public policy and public conduct? I was impressed by what Salman just said, but unfortunately, these are conversations that take place between people who understand transparency, rules, regulations, propriety, public conduct, and things like that. Now, the Prime Minister's speech was very rhetorical to the point where I thought it was an election speech. And he seemed to even forget the fact that there were more than 150 MPs who did not belong to the Congress but were in the opposition. So it was all about me versus Rahul without mentioning Rahul or Gautam Adani. So that was politically significant. The challenges before us are as follows. First of all, does the word ecosystem that Prime Minister Modi mentioned, does it include chartered accountants, valuation experts, public policy experts who do not seem to have any relevance in the current context? And the second point is that Mr. Modi's speech seemed to mention a lot of things that touch the lives of ordinary people. How do you talk about crony capitalism in a manner that touches the lives of ordinary people? Do we say things like LIC policyholders may have been shortchanged because of the difference, or do we say that too much of?
But may I just be cynical?
So there are lots of. This is a big challenge for journalists.
Yeah.
In one sentence, let me say the challenge before now is what is the connection between politics and
Well, that's what,
institutional governance in India?
and may I just make a very cynical comment, Madhavan, that crony capitalism is not the prerogative of one party. Crony capitalism, unfortunately, has been embedded as long as our politics and our elections are funded by political money. We are going to see crony capitalism. That's the truth, unfortunately, of our politics. And so let's call out the elephant in the room. PKD Nambiar, I was trying to come to you right after Salman Soz's point about how airports and big projects like that have been allocated. Do go ahead. That is where he argues is the answerability of the government. And for the government to just avoid the issue altogether, he says is not acceptable. PKD Nambiar.
Well, first and foremost, Barkha, that today's speech of the Prime Minister in the Lok Sabha has proved that he's definitely one of the best ever communicator we ever had. So I think it has got everything. So since we are discussing about his speech, I think he has proved once again that he's one of the finest communicator. Now coming to the topic of Adani and why should the Prime Minister talk about it? The few fundamental questions. When a PVC exporting or a manufacturing company, Adani, in the 1988 and 91, were they, when they were being given the Mudra port as an opportunity to build the first private port in India, was he having an experience of making a port in the past? Definitely no. When the GVK and GMR, when they were given the opportunity to build both Mumbai and Delhi airports, have they built any kind of an airport in the past before that? Definitely no. How a business entity functions, because I am an entrepreneur and I understand that there are times in an organization they may not have that technical knowledge or in the past experience. What they do, they acquire the business
Sorry, Mr. Nambiar, you're frozen up.
rather than
Yeah.
Can you hear me? So I think the question when the Congress asks, they need to ask that question to themselves: is it that the practice which they have started is being followed? One. Number two, the Mumbai airport has not been given it to by Narendra Modi has not given the Mumbai airport to Adani because it has been acquired by them from the GVK. And most important thing, and I expect Gurucharan ji and such a senior person, with huge respect, sir, let me ask you this: any capital intensive project like this in a country like India, when even a bid is opened, you will find hardly any large Indian corporates or the international companies are ready to come in. If a company, whether it is, I'm not talking about their past, present, or anything, if a company which is strategically coming in and taking up such large project, not only in India, but also across the world, you will be finding that we should rather support it. Now, of course, I am not saying that if they have done anything which is irregular activity, there are agencies in the country, they should look at it. There is no doubt. But imagine that there are airports which they wanted to almost every bit. For an example, I'll just tell you, Barkha, but just to quickly give you into the perspective, because we generally just keep talking about that, yeah, Prime Minister should answer. Vizhinjam Port is in Trivandrum, Shashi Tharoor's place. It is, you will be surprised, it is a very, very strategic port for India. Very, very strategic port for India. Who had given that port handed over to Adani? Is it Narendra Modi? Both the UDF government, that is the Umman Chandi. Yeah, that is the Umman Chandi government. And even just few months ago, just 3 months ago, there was a big crisis there. Even then, the left chief minister was just put up the red carpet for Adani.
And those are the images I do want to play again to Salman before I go to Gurucharan, even though Mr. Nambiar's question was for Mr. Gurucharan Das, to Salman Soz. These images that we see of bonhomie, of the kind that Rahul Gandhi references between the Prime Minister and Gautam Adani, also exist between state chief ministers of other parties that Mr. Nambiar is listing. There's one from his own state of Kerala. So the question is this: in our country, the cynics would say, "Bhai, this is how business is done: political patronage, political bonhomie, with sort of the wealthy, the entrepreneurial class." This is unfortunately the reality that we live with. How would you react to that, Mr. Soos?
Well, all states in the country, and they have to do business with business. I mean, there is nothing wrong with doing business, and the Congress Party is not an anti-business party. The whole liberalization that happened because the Congress Party felt that was the right thing to do, and that is how so many of these businesses have come about. The problem is when you get into cozy relationships where you're bending rules to favor particular businesses. Mr. Adani is welcome to compete. He's free to compete with everybody. Nobody's going to stop him. But he cannot do it by having undue influence in the government. That is the fundamental point. Otherwise, he's free. Now, the owners of the former owners of Mumbai airport might come out and say, "Oh no, we gave up our airport because we needed the money, we were in debt, etc." But everybody on this panel, everybody in the country knows how that happened. This
Okay,
is
let me get in Gurucharan.
now,
Yeah.
the only thing I would say is that if you're not breaking rules, if you're playing fair, do as much business as you want, because
Okay.
that's. And by the way,
Okay.
why would when Mr. Nambiar says that, oh no, nobody would come to invest in India. Look at how difficult it is to invest in India. Basically, that's the point he was making. That's Modi's failure. That is the Prime Minister's failure.
Okay, Mr. Nambiar, brief interjection. The others are waiting, so keep it very brief, Mr. Nambiar. Yeah.
I'm a little amazed. I'm a little amazed that many of us are known to the economists very well, but still you say that a capital expenditure and infrastructure businesses investment anywhere in the world, either done, because everybody knows that if you put a $1 billion or a $5 billion, you will only get that money back after maybe 20 years, 30 years, or it's always a long term. So it is very challenging for any country in the world. I challenge you, even in the US or in the Qatar or any other country, you will either the government of India.
With your permission, I must.
Can I finish my statement?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, please complete your point.
I'm only saying that I think capital incentive, I'm only saying capital intensive infrastructure project, there are very limited companies will come in, because they will have to go through a debt route, which is also very high level of debt route to come in. And if Adani as a company had taken that as on themselves to do that dynamism, to do that business, we should appreciate.
I'm sorry, Adani is not the only game in town. I think that is.
Okay, can I now request both of you?
For an example, we were talking about the 6 airports.
What are you talking about?
No, 6 airports. No, 1 second. 6 airports. 6 airports. No, I'll give you one.
Globally.
No, what can I just? I mean, I think just for
may
perspective and
may I request both of you? There's still time. Let the others speak. You can come back to Mr. Nambiar on your 6 airports. Gurucharan ji, please go ahead. Gurucharan Das.
Yeah, I think let's get to the real issues here. The real issues are, one is corporate governance. If my price earning ratio jumps up from 10 rupees to 300 rupees within 3 years, I, as a member of the board, should question, how did this happen? I mean, this is miraculous. The guy, Adani, is a genius. And we should applaud entrepreneurship. We should applaud risk-taking in our country. But the board of those companies should raise this question. So I think one thing we need is strengthening of board governance, so that the audit committees, etc., of the board speak up. Secondly, I think we need to ask ourselves, why do we need, I mean, there are a lot of lessons. Other countries also have airports. They also have bidding for airports. They don't say you should be limited only to 2 people. That's a ridiculous point that they made. Now, at the same time, the government in India is playing still too big a role. That 1991 reforms have not been properly fully.
There's too much government in business, which is the reason, and that's the source of crony capitalism.
Exactly.
Basically, I agree. So I agree with that.
That's the question. And third, regulators. Our regulators keep letting us down. We don't really have independent regulators. I mean, why did nobody bid except ICRTC for private trains? There were
Okay.
There were 13 people who showed interest, but nobody bid because there wasn't an independent regulator. He was an ex-railway person, and
Yeah.
people said, we don't trust this
So let
regulator.
me let Mr. Nambiar complete his point on the airports, and then I do want to go back to the politics of it, because one of the questions that we need to ask after the Prime Minister's speech, he's clearly chosen to make the calculation that the person on the street is with him. The person on the street, he very clearly ends his speech by saying, "ये झूठी बातों को कौन मानेगा?" Not about Adani's allegations, but about the attempt to link the government with the Adani allegations. Mr. Nambiar, please briefly, because Satyenji has been waiting a long time to speak, and as has Madhavan.
I understand.
Go ahead.
I understand very quickly,
Yes.
a very quick information, because the only thing is that one of the narrative is that Adani Group has gone very big in such a massive way during this regime, which is absolutely untrue. Anybody whomsoever has got the basic knowledge will say that from 24 rupees, the share value in the 90s, during the Congress regime, 1,972 percentage was the growth of Adani. From there, the last 8 years of Adani's growth is 700 plus 750 odd percentage. So let's not just blanketly blame that he has grown too big. Second part is that I'm not a perception manager for Adani. But one thing I understand this much: every business, I would say most of the business which Adani is in, these are regulated businesses, whether it is energy, whether it is ports, whether it is airports, all of them. Now coming to the last part, why I'm just little curious to give an answer to Mr. Saws and is airports. You remember that the Trivandrum airport was also a part of the 6 airports given it to Adani. There was an offer given it to the Sial, that is Cochin International Airport, which was the first private airport given to any party. That was a role model. They were even given to an option that the first opportunity to refuse, and even if it is 30 rupees more, if they could, even then the work will go to them. But they could not. If they have not been given an opportunity, they were not able to match the price what Adani has quoted. So when you get somebody a merit, how can you
I'm sure Salman Soz will respond to you, but Satyen, let me go to Satyenji first. Satyenji has been waiting a long time. I come to the politics. The fact that the Prime Minister made, I think Madhavan made the point, a speech almost with one eye on 2024. It was a deeply political speech. It was also not a conventional response to the President's address. It was a speech about the achievements of the government. It was like he's sounding the poll bugle. That is the approach he's taken. It's playing on the forward foot and saying, I don't care, say what you want about Adani, people are not going to believe you. But Satyenji, even on the Mundra port, there have been many questions. Even recently, Mr. Adani was on Rajat Sharma's India TV interview, where he was asked the price at which he got the land for this port. So those are the sort of questions that the opposition is asking. Satyenji?
See, about Honorable Prime Minister's speech today in the Parliament, we must say that he has showcased an entire new India concept, where there is a growth, there is a commitment towards the nationalism, and there is a commitment towards people's benefit. This is what, if we cannot take that as a political speech, but yes, showcasing what India has been doing since past 9 years, and which is very confidently taken up by the people of the country as well. You can see the budget, you can see the reactions after the budget, you can see the marking given after the budget. They are all fantastically inclined towards what the BJP government is aligned to. About this Hindenburg report, again back coming to the Adani part, I have few queries even to the Hindenburg team, whether they are allowed to do any type of reporting in the country of India. I don't think so. They are not journalists. They are not Barkha Dutts of the world. They are just a profit-making, short-selling company. They are not allowed to do that. Another thing is, we have to always evaluate certain angles while we are discussing this on a national front, and which is very critical is the China angle. When iPhone gets a 25% production in India, there is a huge strike going on. Again, a timely thing which is to be evaluated. Another thing, who is the biggest beneficiary of Adani's shortfall in the market is again China. You can vouch my words when I say that Adani is creating head-to-head with China on ports, on various solar projects, and on various international projects where China is eyeing at. So this is one angle which we should always look upon. And apart from this, when we talk of a industry, the nationalistic thing comes first. Whereas very rightly said by Nambiar ji, it's a company with regulated businesses. None of the businesses of Adani's are seen off track or without, which are not in the rule of the land. So
Well, there
looking to
is
all
an
these aspects,
allegation, Satyanji, that his brother was involved in moving money from a private company to a publicly listed one. That one of the offshore investors had links to his brother. So there are irregularities that have been alleged. I mean we must see what's been alleged, right?
I
When you say it's a
I would
regulated company, there is an irregularity alleged, which is why this furor.
see, SEBI should get into it. They should always investigate the matter. There are
Right.
various other agencies in the country which are, authorized to do a cross check of all the irregularities or any regularities which has been done by any companies, and any Adani or any, for that instance, any of the industry falls in the rule of the land, and it has to be once if SEBI
Okay.
understands this as a issue, they will surely
So
interrogate.
leave it to SEBI. Leave it to SEBI is the summer is I think the one line response and the approach that the BJP has taken. Madhavan, let me bring you in, and then I need to start taking last comments. Madhavan, go ahead. Can we unmute Madhavan?
Yeah, can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yep, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, because the key point to note is if you this to understand really the Adani related issues related to crony capitalism, you need a combination of incisive thinking and sophisticated finance to really understand it. The crux of the issue is that public funded infrastructure projects, by that I mean LIC and SBI, these are savings coming from middle class people going into state owned companies, being used in large quantities to build infrastructure companies, and infrastructure finance has been used to create equity valuations, which is like apple and orange. So this requires valuation experts. This requires the legality. Now, Dr. Manmohan Singh, during the demonetization debate, said that this is organized loot and legalized plunder. To really understand legalization of what is unethical or undesirable in public life requires institutional thinking. Nationalist thinking goes against
Hmm.
the institutional thinking of a
So what is
Westminster
happening
based.
here? What did you make of the Prime Minister's response? Let's come back to that, where
The
we
Prime
started.
Minister's response was a case of a ball being left, a bouncer being considered like a white ball and left outside, to use a cricketing analogy. Therefore, the only way Congress can deal with it or any political party can deal with it, you and I don't count, Barkha, because there is a discount now on thinking people in this country. Anti-intellectualism is at the
Okay,
height in this country.
but you raise a very interesting point. The
Yeah,
fact that the Prime Minister did not take the bait, Salman Soz, he didn't take the bait. Now what? Like, what now? What are the options before the opposition in making this an electoral slash political issue? Mr. Soz, can't hear you, Salman. Okay, can't hear Salman. Let me actually take that question in reverse to Satyanji. Can the BJP remain unimpacted by a constant set of allegations that there is too much closeness? You know, when Rahul Gandhi picks up a photograph, and I think we have those shots there, we can play them. When he picks up a photograph of the Prime Minister with Gautam Adani, and the speaker says, shuts him down, but people see the photograph. How long can the BJP kind of look away from those allegations and say that it's not impacted? Satyanji?
See, a photograph by Rahul Gandhi does not, has got actually no relevance because both of them, Adani and Narendra Bhai, both comes from the same state of Gujarat. They have met so many times across. So it has not been a case where they have met often. And also, Adani is an industrialist, and we should understand that industrialist meeting a political person is there everywhere. Even you have shown a photograph of Adani with Mamta Banerjee also, and quite a few
Yeah.
dignitaries also. They
Yes.
have I have seen
Yes.
Adani going to marriages of certain Congress stalwart leaders also. So, what's the relevance of the photo? I don't understand. The Congress has got no agenda to work with, and the way the budget has taken up, they wanted some point to disturb the parliament. The budget was not allowing them to do so, so that they have taken up this type of a issue in the parliament.
Yeah. Salman Soz, if you can hear me, we couldn't hear you the last time. What are the options before the opposition now?
Well, Barkha, I was going to sympathize with Madhavan first because I know how he feels. I understand it. But I think things are going to change. I'm confident. I just returned from Bharat Jodo Yatra in J&K. Walked with the Yatra. It was an amazing thing. So I will. That is part of the answer. But let me just say that some things that we have not discussed at all is why do we think this cronyism is so bad now? Because you have things like electoral bonds. If the prime minister is truly an honest leader, let him divulge who the contributors are to electoral bonds in this country, because we know most of the funds go to the BJP.
But
We
if
know much of the media.
the Congress was in government, most of the funds will go to the Congress. Unfortunately, political funding,
No, it doesn't.
election
Barkha,
funding is the source of cronyism in this country.
No, but Barkha, that's not my point. Isn't that my point? Is that if Prime Minister Modi says I am very honest and all this stuff, let him divulge. Let him. We'll work with him on a law that will basically divulge all the contributors to electoral bonds. That's one. Second,
okay,
I can tell you from my experience with Bharat Jodo Yatra that people in the country, at least the Yatra from what I could see, I'm from Kashmir. I could see in Jammu, I could see in Kashmir, I could see throughout the state that people were fed up.
Okay.
You may not see it in the studios in New Delhi, but people are fed up. And you will see this reflected in 2024. Mark my words.
Trust me, we do. We are not studio journalists. We do often hit the ground quite often, as much as we can, and we will gauge the impact of the yatra as we travel through India. Very briefly, Madhavan. Sorry, I had PKD to go to. PKD, last words, and then Madhavan. Sorry. PKD.
I think only one point which I loved in this whole debate is that the corporate governance, and I have been in almost every platform wherever I have participated. I said that yes. It is Adani needs to come clean when it comes to the corporate governance. There is no doubt. And there is no doubt. And I think Gurucharan ji made a very important point that corporate governance is very, very critical. Second part is that whether Adani had grown, whether Adani is growing, Adani is not India. India is not Adani. We only need to work on things like if you have a solid proof in parliament when we discuss and put allegation, clear way you should have the documentary proof to say that yes, you have favored this Adani like this, you have done this in this level. As I said, Adani as a businessman, he is the loser. And secondly, most important part is that you have not even understood that LIC is a gainer in this whole game. LIC, whatever amount he have invested and versus whatever right now, SBI clearly says that one of their finest debt exposure is Adani because everything is very, very secured. वो उधर का airport या port लेकर कहीं उठा के लेके जाने वाला नहीं है. Adani is not a tech bubble. Adani is into the business of pure infrastructure projects which you and me use. And I think putting all of this into the politicizing an independent business entity is not at all the right thing.
Sorry.
And the most important thing, one 10 second, I'll tell you, the most important part is that if you really look at this last 15 days of this drama, I compliment the government. The market was falling. The Adani's 100 billion, the valuation is going down. But the government did not even interfere even for a second. And that is precisely what as a free market is all about. If the market is functioning on its own independently, I think we must compliment the government.
Let me get Madhavan to respond to that briefly before I give Gurucharan the closing word.
Let me take a leaf out of the Prime Minister's book and try my own way of discussing this issue. Prime Minister spoke about Startup India and one unicorn a day, whereas Gautam Adani has been creating one unicorn every week. So we want to know what is so talented about him to be the Shah Rukh Khan of India's economy. Why are civil engineers who are coming out of the dozens?
Pathan hit 1,000 crores, I just want to say.
Yeah, anyway, we want to know why is there no startup funding for infrastructure projects? Why not create MBAs from Ahmedabad and Bangalore are coming with special public policy expertise? Why do they have to work under a family-run company? Why not create startup funding for infrastructure for special
I mean,
purpose
that's his
vehicles?
business, right? It's his money. It's his business. It's
No,
not
I'm
your
not
money. It's
talking
his
about,
money. He can
I'm
do what he
talking
wants to
about
with it.
government money. Why can't
Yeah.
LIC fund engineers
Okay.
and MBAs?
Okay. Got it.
Why
Got it.
should
Okay.
it, you know, there
Okay.
is, why should all the startup funding come from America?
Okay. Let me give Gurucharan
Why
the
not
last word.
startups for infrastructure? Why are
Gurucharan
Indian
Das.
youths
We have to
being
close.
betrayed on this?
Okay.
Let
Gurucharan.
me,
Gurucharan.
So I would say, look, we're a democracy. Democracies do crazy things. But one of the things democracies do is they value transparency. They value argumentative Indians. And so I would say scrutiny is good. What
Yeah.
Hindenburg is doing, we may not like it, Adani may not like it, but the reality is that it gets down to, it creates a crisis. And crisis also can be good, because a good crisis can lead to learning. The country learned a lot from the Harshad Mehta scam days.
Scam.
We've
Yeah.
moved, we've moved a long distance in
Yeah.
improving our governance. But we still, and actually even SEC gets caught. Hindenburg showed up some companies, the SEC had missed it.
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong in that. Let's let everybody speak up. And I would just say scrutiny is good, but at the same time, we have to learn
Yeah.
to, our regulators still come down sometimes. That's why I appreciated the comments made that the government did not do anything in this case. And that's also a virtue. Let the
Okay.
market take its course. So again, I would just close on that note that
And I would say the
regulators need to improve.
And I would say the bottom line is that Mr. Adani rubbished the Hindenburg report, but then also announced that he was going to prepay 8,000 crores worth of loans against shares in the next 45 days. Something I think we wouldn't have seen him doing were it not for this crisis. So I think to Gurucharan's point, that has happened. And he'd probably be trying to sell off a few of his companies to reduce how highly leveraged the group is. We leave it there to Satyen, to Salman, to PKD, Nambiar, Madhavan, and Gurucharan. That's a pleasure always to our audience. Thank you as ever. See you tomorrow. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.